guests, or fellow Toastmates. There's no guests today, so today we're going to try to be paladins for the structurally unemployed. Now, so like I said in the past, I like to start my speeches off with a quote, usually from Teddy Roosevelt, one of my favorites. And he said, "We must see that each is given a square deal because he is entitled to no more and should receive no less. The welfare of each of us is dependent fundamentally upon the welfare of all of us." So I work in workforce development at MEDC. And in workforce development, we spend a lot of time focusing on recruiting high-skilled talent and also getting the recently unemployed job training. You know, that's an important effort, but sometimes the people who are suffering the most in our economy are the structurally unemployed. Now, structurally unemployed is defined as people who lack the basic skills necessary to obtain employment even when those jobs are available. So those people are particularly hurt during a time of economic recession or kind of stagnation, which is kind of what we have now. So poverty's on the rise. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 15.1% of the population is under the poverty line. So people are there are more poor, the poor population is growing. And in Michigan, that's even worse. It's 16.1%. So the question is, how do we provide a path out of poverty? And the answer, of course, is long-term employment at a living wage. However, to expand employment opportunities for people, we need to look at the barriers to employment. So some of the barriers to employment are illiteracy. You know, it's hard to get a job if you can't read. Access to child care. You know, it's hard to get a job if you can't afford child care for your kids. You know, lack of high school education, lack of skills that are in demand by employers. There's also an issue of lack of soft skills, you know, things like timeliness, arriving to work on time, and ability to work in a team. Access to transportation. You need transportation, of course, to get to your job. So issues like driver's license fines, where you can have so many fines on your driver's license that you can't activate your license, so you can't drive to employment. And then lack of job history. All those things are barriers to employment. So public assistance is necessary to help the structurally unemployed overcome these barriers to employment. But the problem is public assistance is on the decline. You know, public funds are being reduced. So just as an example, I picked out the Workforce Investment Act and JET, which are two of the major workforce programs in Michigan. You know, they're federal programs, so the funds flow down to Michigan. And if you look in 2008, you know, we got $242 million in WIA funds, and then in the last measure, we got $130 million. So that's a $112 million cut. And then for JET, you know, they go from 112 in 2008 to 79 million in 2012. That's a $33 million cut. So the question, kind of the thesis of the presentation is, how do we provide employment and public assistance in a time of economic stagnation and declining public resources? So one answer might be social entrepreneurship. Social entrepreneurship utilizes private sector principles and connects public and private partners to solving social problems. And at the MEDC, we have Community Ventures. So that's MEDC's new social entrepreneurship effort. So it's a statewide support structure to assist the structurally unemployed. Now there are many local programs and resources at the local level. And our objective is to support those resources. So this new initiative will utilize, you know, public and private resources and help coordinate and kind of coordinate federal, state, and local efforts together. So think of it as kind of federalism meets private sector, public sector partnerships. So we want these programs to be sustainable for the long term, so we need successful participants and entrepreneurs. So this initiative will meet a number of critical needs. It'll provide real jobs for the structurally unemployed. It'll address barriers to employment. You know, barriers like I talked about previously, like daycare, and will provide financial assistance and transportation. We'll provide a venue for additional services to help people succeed. That's like mentoring and adult education and financial literacy and things of that nature. We'll provide a way for people to develop an employment track record and develop professionally. And MEDC will adopt a number of different approaches to address these critical needs. So one will be targeted business attraction efforts. Another will be support for socially minded entrepreneurs. And then also we will help facilitate public and private partnerships. So some of the support tools that would be available to locals who want to initiate this effort would be funding, you know, through microloans and grants. We will either through public and private resources, or MEDC might provide some funding. We'll have another tool, we'll provide an entrepreneurial incubator where we can partner with local community colleges and universities. And so they'll provide kind of technical assistance to entrepreneurs who want to start a project. There'll be business development tools available where we'll help form partnerships with buyers and customers and distributors to connect local ventures to markets. There'll be business services. You know, locals will have access to a team of professionals who provide insurance and legal, accounting, marketing, and HR support. There'll be a business location effort where assistance with site selection and acquisition will be provided. We'll also have connections. What I mean by connections is connections to kind of the workforce system, where we'll help locals connect Michigan, you know, with Michigan Works agencies and human services agencies and adult education services. So Community Ventures is a kind of a decentralized organic approach, and it's driven by the needs of locals. Now, one key model is to provide public assistance at the worksite. So participants can both work at the worksite and obtain public assistance there. And one model, and our pilot project is in Ypsilanti. It's called Seeds for Change. So the mission of Seeds for Change is to provide jobs for structurally unemployed workers in the growing agribusiness and food service sector. The project plan involves a shared kitchen incubator facility and land facilities. So at the kitchen incubator, that's for entrepreneurs and employees to develop, you know, food processing and then distribute the food to local market. And then the land and facilities, and that, you know, that's for food production. It'll either be community gardens or maybe some kind of facility where it's called aquaculture, where they grow fish, and the fish provide fertilizer that then is allowed, that it's like super fertilizer that grows tomatoes and other produce. So here's some of the things that the incubator facility will include. They'll have a commercial kitchen for food preparation and packaging. We'll have business resources at the kitchen or at the facility. So it'll be like offices and phone and fax and internet access, office support staff. Technical assistance will be provided at the facility, where entrepreneurs will get that technical assistance I mentioned earlier from local experts from the university. And there'll be training for employees in food safety and processing and technical aspects of food system work. And there'll be public assistance provided at the incubator facility. So like childcare and basic skills training. So the basic project outcomes, I just kind of listed them here. So creating employment for low-income people in the area, creating entrepreneurs to help start up businesses, providing training and assistance for participants, improving health and nutrition for local residents, preserving the environment, and increasing civic engagement. So the field of social entrepreneurship helps provide innovative solutions to the use of entrepreneurial principles and organizational structures, and community ventures will provide real jobs and public assistance to the structurally unemployed. So
Let's have go ahead, I was just gonna say, just give them like 5 minutes to give your comments or ask questions.
So how can I improve this?
Well,
'Cause
first,
I got too much stuff going on.
no,
I'm not
the presentation, I wasn't here last week, so I didn't hear it last week. I heard it the first time. And it's improved 100%, but there's still room for more. Your slides are very helpful, but you're reading the slides. If you read it and then you say a little bit about it. If you just skip the reading part, just talk about it. And I think it'll be a lot more effective. And also, if you rely less on your notes, and you'll get the audience in and have a lot better acceptance, because they'll feel that you know what you're talking about.
Do you know what the setup's going to be like when you give your presentation? Like the room
No.
setup?
No.
I think part of like the reading thing, you had the look down for the mouse, and then you had to look down for your notes, and then you were looking back at the screen to make sure if you had, like in today's situation, if you had the computer up on the podium, it wouldn't have looked like you were looking down so strongly, so much, because you would have been able more at eye level with it.
I have something to say along those lines, is that, and it's one of the things about slides in general, is that when the slide comes up, look at it once and assume that it's not going to change. Because you can look back, make sure it changes, then look back at the audience. You don't need to look at the same slide anymore. There were instances where you look back and then you talk, and you look back to the slide again, and then you talk, and then you change it. Where you got to assume that it's going to be there and stay, and it's not going to switch. And that'll make it easier. You can see the audience better rather than constantly doing this.
It goes back to what Jan was saying. If you have the laptop right on the lectern, you're seeing that, and what you see is going to be there, so you will never have to turn your back on the audience. And
Well,
then what he was saying, don't read. Everybody can read. Just take 1 or 2 important things on each slide and talk about that. That way you can continuously talk and you're not wasting time reading, because that could be insulting to some people. I know how to read, don't read it to me. Tell me something which is not on the slide.
The slides definitely helped though. I'm not familiar with what you do, and it all kind of came together after the last couple of weeks with the slides today. Like I understand it a lot better now.
I agree with that.
Yep. Do you guys have a template PowerPoint that you use? Because your slides are all
Yes,
all your slides are different, so maybe you want to put them on.
I'll show you. It's not what I'm
Oh.
trying to. We have a standard slides for every, we are supposed to use that all the time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just pasted the Pure Michigan thing in.
So, I really like the structure of the speech. I think the slides helped you. Initially, you had that Roosevelt quote right at the beginning, and that was a good hook, to get the audience interested, because that was really leads into your speech, and it was really well organized. You went point by point. The ending was kind of abrupt, so you just said "so" and that's it. I would say that you just, if you want to have a good conclusion, you should just recap. So it's like the elements of a good speech are say what you're going to say it, and then recap what you just said. So I would say the last element was missing, so just recap the speech or the main points of it towards the end. That's
You could
okay.
state your quote too, cause your quote fits throughout your thing. I'm gonna begin, you know, you come back with, to finish it, you can say, so again, in the words of Teddy Roosevelt, blah, blah, blah.
How much time do you have?
It's 10 to 15 minutes.
Then you definitely have 5 extra minutes and you can ask questions and get people involved. How many of you know what is structurally unemployed? And then say this is the way we look at Michigan as a structurally, and that way people get engaged. At least a couple times in the presentation you can do that, ask questions.
Yeah, I just feel like I'm not, I mean, I got all this information, I'm like trying to get it across, but then I'm not, whenever I deliver it, it's like I'm not connecting.
Need more energy.
So,
One of the things today that seemed different was that it was more scripted and you were reading more. When you just go off the cuff, sometimes you seem more involved and more energy or whatever. But maybe you can.
Well, it goes back to BJ talking to everyone about using notes or not. And
Yeah.
this time, since he had the slides, it seemed like you had to read your notes instead of coming out of what you already know
yeah,
about the slide.
I feel like I did a better job like the first time I gave it when I didn't even have notes. But
Came from
I
your
wouldn't
heart.
say
Yeah.
that,
Oh.
but
No, I would, today it
think
all
so?
clicked today.
Yeah, it,
alright, I see it's like awkward reading, I think.
I would suggest if you can, find out what kind of layout you're gonna have when you give your presentations. You know, are you gonna be in a big lecture hall and you're gonna be up at a podium? Are you gonna be in a meeting room? You know, see what kind of layout you have so you kinda have an idea, cause that can be intimidating too if you don't know for sure what you're going into.
Yeah.
I think you really need to be paladin of this cause, and
Yeah.
that comes with the energy. You are there to make a difference, and that's how you need to make a presentation, not just sharing information.
And I liked your example of the aquaculture. I'd almost focus more on examples that you've, of successes, more so than, you know, spend a little more time on that people maybe can relate to. The aquaculture, I like that. It is hard to explain. I'm sure there's pictures out there
Yeah.
online that, you know, because I don't know if everybody knows, I have an understanding of it, but to try to explain it without a visual could be hard, so when is your presentation?
Next Tuesday.
One more suggestion I might have.
But I won't have to give it many times, so it's not like.
Yeah.
You had a lot of sows, and sometimes they meant sow, and sometimes they were your transition into the next topic. Sometimes if you use like in order to or different words for your sow that's the appropriate sow, then you don't end up having so many sows.
Yeah.
I think we should throw stuff at them every
Well,
time.
when I was in college, we had a day where in my speech class, if we had the ahs or the ers or the so's or whatever, they like toot a horn or a bell or something, so that every time you said it, you found out that it clicked that you were saying it, and that really helped.
Is it in the budget, can we get a horn?
Yeah.
I've
all
got-
those
yeah,
I can bring
things.
one.
All right, we got it. For our general evaluation, we've got a paladin of a runner named Derek Hertzmeyer. We don't have to do the first evaluate, or we've only got one evaluator today because we've already evaluated Jim's. Little known to Darren, I've heard a lot of runners here talk, you know, they come to me and they tell me that he's a great guy and he runs it and he's fast now, but he always encourages the slower runners, and it's good to hear that through people who I've met that run. So please welcome Darren, General Evaluator.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. We had two great speeches from two guys that are paladins of MEDCs. We will get one evaluation. Mr. Ron Middleton, if you would work your way to the front and evaluate Manish's speech, and then we'll get our helper reports and we'll get out of here.
Mr. General Evaluator, or Toastmates. Ganesh had a really good speech. He is, I guess you could say, a paladin of speech writing and speaking. Certainly has a lot of experience, so it makes my job as the evaluator a little bit easier. I felt that the audience was very interested in the topic, that they had a good participation, that you had a lot of interest in your topic from the audience. Everybody seemed to be involved in that. The MEDC was certainly mentioned a lot of times in there. And it was a very good explanation that you gave of what the MEDC does. The little handout card was very helpful. That really, that's something that we can all take put in our pocket and take with us. So that's, and it's a small enough handout that it's not going to get just laid on the car seat and somebody sits on it and ends up in the dumpster. The information that you gave, I felt, was very valuable. It explained a lot of what the MEDC does and what you're trying to accomplish with it, or what the state, what your department is trying to accomplish with it right now. And you could definitely tell that you were very knowledgeable on the subject. You just spewed out. It was there. There didn't seem to be any hesitation on your part as to what to say next. And as far as what to do to improve your speech, I don't know. You did an excellent job, and I really don't know what else you could do to improve it. Does anybody else have any?
I had one suggestion, that maybe when you visit the web pages, you could just say, on here you can find this too, you know, or something, because you just kind of clicked each one real fast and said, this is what's here, this is what's here, this is what's here. But maybe you could go, you know, make sure you check out this link and what's behind it on the page, or something just a little bit more, or maybe give a handout with the links as well.
Very good. With that, I'll turn it back over to the general evaluator.
Manesh, I do have one suggestion. When's Governor Snyder coming to our next Toastmasters meeting?
Say that again?
When's Governor Snyder coming to our next Toastmasters meeting? You probably can get him here, can't you?